Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hedin, former installation contractor and boutique store owner. Joining me this week is Marcos Guerequeta, owner of Local Flooring Group in Saskatchewan, Canada. He's been on the show before. He's returning. And Marcos built up Local Flooring Group in a unique way. He went to social media right away and really worked on branding and having a unique brand value proposition within his market to begin gaining market share with his company. And since then, he's very much established that. And now he's looking to take, now that there's the reputation and the brand, he's looking at stepping back and finding a way to refine all of the processes within the company to make them more efficient, competitive, free up more of his time, right? So we're looking at how do we implement CRMs? How do we improve the sales process? Where do we go and find extra points of margin on installation side? And so a current struggle within the company is managing subcontracted installations. And so we're going to dig into that as well as some other things today and try and work out some solutions for him to be able to implement into his company that he can start moving forward with and getting it to grow. So before we have Marcos introduce himself here, we have a quick word from Tile Tools. Attention flooring professionals, elevate your craftsmanship with the finest tools and supplies from tiletools.com. From spacers to saws, we have everything you need for flawless tile installations. Plus, we offer top-notch customer service and fast shipping. As a special offer for Floor Academy listeners, you can use the code FA10 to receive an additional 10% off your next order. Don't settle for less. Visit tiletools.com and learn today why. I can't even read off of a piece of paper in front of me. Don't settle for less. Visit tiletools.com today and experience the difference in quality and service that professionals trust. I don't know why that was so hard to read. It was right in front of me, and I was trying to make it up. That's funny, guys. I think that's the best part about live ad reads is when I just absolutely butcher them. All right, Marcos, welcome back to the show. It was great catching up and chatting with you. I don't know, it was a couple weeks ago at this point, but it was a good time, man. I'm looking forward to this. So why don't you go ahead and tell everybody who you are, what you do, and why you do it?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me back. I'm happy that I
Oh,
got a hold of you and got a space in here. So,
you're not
yeah,
even on
I'm
the
Marcos
screen.
Guerequeta.
I had your audio. We didn't have you on the screen. There you go. Now your pretty face is there. I'm sorry, folks, if you're
So
watching on YouTube. I'm not doing my setup right. Sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
I'm Marcos Guerequeta. My company is Local Flooring Group. I'm in Saskatchewan, Canada. Um, I've been building for 8 years now. Just been in flooring for 12. Uh, Really just fell in love with how you can bring value to the market and how widespread it is. It's honestly a thought process in so many people's minds to redo and renovate their homes or new homes that definitely just something struck a chord with me and I got stuck in it. So this is where I'm at. Now I'm trying to find all the solutions for all the problems that I have with the process of the whole thing. So
Uh, I think it's funny you chose the word stuck. I think there's a lot of people that feel that way. Like you get involved with the flooring industry and it doesn't let you go. Um,
yeah,
I, Stuck or unwilling to leave. Let
yeah,
me ask you that.
it's very competitive. So that's why I really enjoy my job is because like for one, the competitors in the game are very good because they're typically installers that started a store. So you're getting a fully
Mm.
knowledge person on a storefront. And when you can have an installer that can see how to manage people and actually market products, that's a really good combo of things that you can get from a company. And honestly, there's a lot of good people that are mindful because installers are kind of like artists.
Hmm.
So you're going to be creative. You're going to be kind of a risk taker too. That's why you're in the profession. I think just the nature of the profession, it calls for that type of person. So
Hmm.
um, yeah, I really enjoy it. It's competitive. It's monopolized, so it's very difficult to get into. But also, you can bring a lot of value if you have your own perspective.
Hmm. Which I think, I mean, we'll touch on it real quick. That was the original conversation. I think you got to go back to like 2020, 2021. You got to scroll way back. If you
Yeah,
just do a search for Marcos's name and then like Floor Academy, you'll find his other episode. And we talk about social media and building a brand. And I think that's what really helped you be able to do it. You found a unique way that traditionally flooring stores are not doing to connect with an audience and really carve out a niche for you within Saskatchewan to grow your clientele.
yeah, and I found that uh, having a social media presence really expanded what you could do. It it gave you opportunity to be seen more. I find attention is really difficult to get, especially at a low cost, especially
Hmm.
when you're a smaller company. You're really just trying to find the best bang for your buck. And social media in 2020, especially, I mean, you could you could advertise on people pretty well at that time until they kind of shut things down a bit, which made things harder and even more so important to create a brand behind yourself so that you are recognizable because you can't rely on the ads. Um, so yeah, it's I'm really happy that when we did talk that we were talking on brand and I stayed focused on that mindset to continue that and not always think I'm getting a job for a dollar. It's really you're building a brand. You're not building a company that's just completely focused on money at all times, you know?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm. No, I think that's a great point. Is that you're trying to build that reputation, you're trying to build that knowledge, and it's not necessarily about the dollar you make today. It's about being able to build something that ensures you can make a dollar in 5 or 10 years down the road.
yeah, exactly. Like that's our kind of turnaround time, right? So, um, if you've made a good name for yourself and you've uh, been a kind person, I guess, and done the right thing, not maybe what everybody enjoys, but at least having the conversation to
Hmm.
have the truth behind the decision, not just a perspective in a fight. That's really where I found a lot of value.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's you can't put the dollar first. You got to put the people first, right? So you once you learn that you're solving a problem, when you can go and identify the problem for your client, as long as you deliver on fulfilling the promise of solving that problem, you're golden, right? You just take care of people, and then people will take care of you. It's really,
Yeah,
it's the law of do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. Doesn't get much simpler than that, right? Just go do the right thing, and then amazingly, things kind of keep chugging along in the right direction.
yeah, it sure does. Not always in the same timeline that you want it to be, but it'll show up. So,
Yeah, definitely. The best way to have something go sideways is to make plans.
yeah,
That's, but you wanted to hit on you want to talk a little bit about CRMs. And so, is
yeah.
that something you've implemented so far? Do you have one, or is it a matter of we? I, what am I saying? You do you have one, or if not, why not yet? And if you do have one, then is it a struggle to use it? Right? I think there's so many options out there that it could become a problem of like, does this really do what I want it to do?
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to do a touch point on it because from my experience, we didn't know what to get. We knew we needed it, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what a lot of people are feeling right now. Like you feel like you need it or something to organize you better, just because I mean, if you're growing, you're doing well, you're probably going to feel that. If you're having staff that are falling off, you're going to probably want to know what the heck was going on with the last client. So like honestly, in every scenario, if you don't have it and you're not thinking of it, I ask why. To be honest, I think it's necessary for honestly even yourself, just to keep yourself organized on
Hmm.
each lead customer, and having information on that customer, not confusing them. It's very easy to confuse clients when you get to 5 or 10. So just as a salesperson, I think that's very helpful, and that's at, in 2020. That's when we started hiring staff, and that's where I felt I was lacking and I needed to learn. So what we ended up doing was buying like the high end Salesforce because it had the best, um, I guess, online presence at the
Okay.
time. But it was just too big, very clunky for a smaller business. We're a team of 8 people. We don't need that large of a process.
Hmm.
We needed something just clean, but we didn't know that until a year of using it, uh, and kind of failing to use it, to be honest, because the only real use of it is if you use it.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, we backtracked and kind of reassessed what we actually needed, and what we ended up finding out is we just needed something that was clean. So we went with Monday.com. I find it's nice and clean. You get a little bubble. You get all your leads with, and as a little bubble, I call it like a post-it note because it's like just a bubble of chat where everybody can chat on it. All the
Okay.
sales team or order desk or install manager, everybody can discuss something on there. So you really get the full uh, pace of the game, like from start to finish, from the sales leads, to the order desk to the install
Hmm.
manager. Everybody can be part of that and fully get a full description of the client and bring awareness too. You can tag each other, right? So I found that for just internalize, you need one. And I would hate for someone else to not learn from the lesson. That's why I wanted to come on and actually talk about CRMs.
Hmm.
They're very boring. But they're so necessary nowadays. So I extremely want some of your businesses out there that are listening. If you're thinking about it, start small. Just honestly try the Monday.com and you can find out what you like and don't like from a small
Hmm.
promise company rather than a large one, and thinking that you have to take on something larger than you need right now because you're going to scale. Honestly, smaller teams with as much information as you can give each other as fast as possible without having small talk. And that's what that CRM did. So
Okay.
that's the purpose of what I find it. You just get clarity. So
Yeah. No, I think, it was, there's a little bit of a difference between what an individual installer and a retailer necessarily going to use a CRM for, I think. And the audience is mixed. And so me as an installer, when it was just myself and probably for the first, year and a half or so, 2 years, a notepad, a whiteboard. Like I was really good with like that's about as much notes as I needed. I learned real quick I couldn't keep track of it all in my head, and it was driving me nuts trying. So I had to like go put it externally somewhere so that I didn't have to spend the mental energy on it. And then as you grow, there becomes other things, right? It's I don't want to save notebooks for 5 years that have estimation notes and notes that were made during the project. I don't want to have to save those. And then this person reaches out and I'm like, well, okay, which notebook from 2017 did you end up in? Right now I got to flip through 70, 100-page notebooks looking for the specific estimate or project note that was taken that day. Or I can go to a online system that's cloud based anywhere, right? I can be out on vacation and pull it up and get the answer and answer it, especially for like, I'll use the hardwood guys as an example. If you made a custom stain, you can put the notes into the CRM and you know exactly what you used. It was 2 parts of this, 1 part of this, and 1 part of that. And bam, I got my custom stain. And then I used this finish on it. you're good to go, right? You don't have to remember all that. You don't have to dig it out. You don't have to write it down on something and hide it in a corner of the client's house and hope they don't throw it out. It's just there for you. And so I think that's where, like, from that perspective alone for installers, it's great. And then you go and you add in the thing like where I think CRMs can be great for a retail store is the if you get one that can handle email for you and you can make your email campaigns, that's where as a retail store, you definitely can't let leads die. And I know as an installer, I was always like, if you're not ready to go now, I don't want you, right? I need you to be ready to go in 6 to 8 weeks. That's how far out I'm booked. That's what's comfortable for me. So if you're willing to work with that, like, cool. But there's people that reach out and they're not going to be ready to go for a year. Well, I never captured like hardly any of that business because they didn't remember about me in a year. And so being able to have some kind of system in place to be able to constantly reach out to those clientele, keep them in front of you, through whether you're doing like a monthly newsletter, some kind of campaign about the specific type of flooring project they have, and you're giving them little tidbits and knowledge as we go. That's really powerful. And then you build in all the sales stuff and numbers tracking and the fact that, it can help you with profit margin. Like, if you get a system that's robust enough, it really starts compounding on itself how valuable it becomes within the company.
Yeah, it truly does. Even just having like a lead, like you said, from a year ago, you're not going to remember that off the top of your head. If you do write it down, it's almost safe to say it's going to be gone by that time. And then you're relying on your lead to remember you and your number. So even just having a CRM as an installer, when you have somebody speak to you, you putting their information into that CRM, you putting a note into a column that says, their timeline for when their project is, so that at least you have, say, a monthly check-in of a phone call to that customer to see where they're at 6 months from now. All you need is that. You just need something to track that so you have a place back to go. So whether you're a one-man show, whether you are a very large store, I fully suggest the CRM is a must-have, and it's only valuable if you use it. So as much information that's all in your guys' heads, put it inside of that CRM so that you can get other humans to think like you. You can't assume that they're going to think like you without puking that knowledge on the paper.
Well, I think that's the key point, right? You want your sales staff to think like you, act like you, work like you. How much time are we going to waste having the conversation for me to transfer this data from myself to you? Or I was already at the computer, I was already working on this project for the new prospect and typing in half the information into some other piece of software we use. Like, if I just spend the 5 minutes to put it into the system and then I tell the salesperson, hey, I've assigned you blah 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 prospect, can you go take care of that? They just pull up the file and they get all the notes, and then I don't have to talk to them, right? I just freed up 5 minutes of my time to go ahead and work on something else because I don't have to put it in the system and then have the conversation, and then 3 days later they're like, oh, what was it about that client? Like, let's discuss this again, right? They can go refer to the notes, and I think what a lot of people miss, and I forget the exact way it was phrased, but essentially, like, in order to become more efficient, you have to work up how data gets transferred from one person to another person in your company. And a CRM is going to do that.
Exactly. Exactly that. You just have to transfer communication throughout the company as fast as possible with as little clicking and opening and closing of windows as possible. So again, it's all about the size of your business and how much effort you want to put in. But again, I would say Monday.com was my success story on that CRM. And implementation, it was just easy to teach, easy to use, and that's why I found success with it. Not because it's anything special. It's a must-do, and it's just like paper. It's like putting it on paper, but your paper's gone, and it's really hard to read your chicken scratch. So you can't be mad at your sales team if they don't know what the heck you're talking about. You need to set them up with success, and the best way to do that is to communicate Kind of like the Wizard of Oz. You just become the Wizard of Oz. You gotta get comfortable with letting your sales team make smaller decisions, but you become like the wise master of everybody and make the wise decisions at the top when they're feeling a little bit of pressure because you've
Hmm.
made those decisions, right? But if you're making every decision, um, it's time to step back a little bit. I think that's what I had to learn myself.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. And so maybe you can kind of dig into this a little bit and how you overcame it. I think what a lot of people miss is they get frustrated with staff and team members because they're like, I can't trust them to do what they need to do. I can't delegate. It never gets done. But you just answered your own problem. So if you can't trust them, then why are they in that position? So
Exactly.
that's a you problem. So how did you learn to actually trust your team? Was it that you just had to learn to let go? Was it that you needed to learn a better way to train them? What was the thing that actually let you establish trust in your team?
Everything you just said and a little bit more, to be honest. So setting them up with systems so that you can uh, see their progression, so that you see that they are actually doing well or not. So having those systems in place, and that's just simply like showing them how to quote, um, letting them know your values so that you guys are aligned with
Mm-hmm.
those decisions you're trusting them to make. Uh, your your process of how you are taking those resumes. How are you going through those resumes? You need to decide who you're looking for, is what I've discovered. Uh, and essentially, what I discovered is I'm looking for like I call them entrepreneurs, somebody who's an entrepreneur, but isn't able to make the jump yet, hasn't found the passion yet, hasn't found their thing, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just aren't, and I'm hoping that I can show them what I see in flooring, and then they become passionate because they've already checked the boxes of the human that I want. And that tends to be an ADHD person uh, that has their emotions in check, not somebody who's can't control their emotions. They have to be able to regulate themselves
Mm-hmm.
because we're all adults in the room now. But you got to have those little niche things that an ADHD person does have because we're a small team, like I said, and our expectations are you take care of the part of the island that I trusted you with. If I trust you with the fishery and I picked you up off the dock and I saw that you had some potential as a really good, strong fisher person, um, I'm going to entrust you with my fishery and I'm going to expect, after I've laid out my expectations, for you to fulfill them because I trusted you because I hired
Mm-hmm.
you. If you show me after 2 to 3 weeks that you're not living up to the potential that I expected of you, it's no one's fault. It's just simply you're not up to, like, it's a hockey team or a football team.
Yeah.
it is what it is. You're just not cut out for this. And we're going to go and try and find a new human that fits the attributes off the
Mm-hmm.
start for the resume, that fits the interview process, that shows me that they actually have those attributes. And then after 3 weeks, you know when they're good and when they're not. So it's up to you to honestly put aside your ego to say, I know how to hire people. You don't know how to hire people. You just know who you like. If they work out with the same intent,
Mm-hmm.
work ethic, and passion, you can't expect that from even a good person that has one or two of those attributes. They have to check the boxes. And it's up
Yeah.
to you to create the passion, though. I really believe that. They're checking the other boxes, though. So
So
I
yeah.
just know who I'm looking for now, which just gives me a better shot at the carnival game. It's like the balloons, and the game is I
Mm-hmm.
want all the blue balloons. Well, I just put the blue balloons in the right hand corner and start throwing darts instead of wondering which balloons do I want.
Yeah. How many I think what I would like to say is like I learned that I had to stop wanting it for somebody.
Yeah,
Like so
that's so
like
true.
it's I hired them, and now it's like my reputation's on the line because I was so worried about me and me getting it right that I wanted it so bad that I wasn't willing to let bad employees go.
Yeah. It's
And that
mostly
was the
ego,
problem.
man. It's mostly ego. It
Hmm.
truly is. It's like anytime you're making a weird decision that you feel like it's not a good decision, it's typically because your ego's in front of it. Um, and that could be whether it's money or I've hired you, so I feel like I'm accountable for you doing well. It's not up to me for you to do well. It's you to show
Hmm.
me I gave you the opportunity. And although you do have to give them the tools, right? Like you got to give them
Yes,
the
that's the key.
communication and you have to give them the training. And if you haven't done those parts, well, then it is your fault. And
Hmm.
maybe they're too far gone and you actually do have to hire them and you actually have to fire somebody that was actually good. But you didn't do it,
Yeah. No,
unfortunately.
I think that's the big part of it is you have to evaluate, did you actually give them the ability to succeed, or did you fail them? And then if you gave them the ability to succeed and they didn't do it, then they're probably not a good fit, and you gotta cut the dead weight when you need to, and you generally know a lot sooner than you actually want to do it. I think you saying like 3 weeks is a pretty good timeline. I think you can give people 30, 90 days as like a trial basis, but if
Yeah.
it's not working out within the first couple of weeks, there's nothing wrong with getting rid of somebody. I definitely would have that. If I went back and started doing it, I would hire more people a lot faster. That is for sure. I
Yeah,
want to.
honestly, hire and fire fast is my suggestion because you get practice, and if you get practice, you get good at choosing people, right?
You're not
And
wrong.
like knowing who they are.
Hmm.
And I don't know, like once you know who you're trying to get, um, you can fake it only so long. And again, that third portion, you got to have passion. So if you don't have passion that first 3 weeks, I'm kind of wondering like, is flooring your thing, or are you just kind of like maybe into interior design, like the whole thing,
Okay.
or cabinetry. I don't know.
Yeah. What
Because
are
they're just
you
in
here for?
discover. They're in discover mode too, right? When they come
Hmm.
into you, they're in discover
No, that makes sense. All right. Let's get into. I mean, not that none of this has been valuable. But you're currently struggling a little bit on the installation side. It's not that they're going poorly or that you're not able to do it, but you're looking for better ways to manage your installations. So, what can you break out for us what the current system kind of looks like to get all of your crews scheduled, how many crews you have, about how far out you stay booked. Let's look at the overall big picture of it and then hone in on like where the pain points are.
Yeah. So we keep like a general for sure booked in an 8 week timeline, and then we kind of keep the rovers after that. So we're right now booked into next season, essentially mid season next year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because of like the conditions of what's happening in the world. We're getting a lot of rentals going up, which you have to bid on. So it's just getting projects that are into 2025.
Okay.
Um, but as for like the general mom and pops that are walking in our door, we keep that open because that's our really main focus is to go after the end consumer. Because at the end of the day, they're making all the decisions. Even if you do have to go to a home builder, eventually, if you go to the home builder enough and ask why there's not this company in your flooring as your flooring store, they're gonna come and call you possibly for pricing. So end consumer is where we hyper focus. So
Okay.
um, yeah, they tend to be the person that makes all the decisions and also set the trends. So if we get them with our marketing, we can influence it a lot. So that's where we tend to put all of our time in. As for our installers, um, we just book them with our Monday.com as our order desk. So
Mm-hmm.
once it's into our order desk, it gets checked into a separate location that's just called installs. Monday.com does have a calendar view, which we don't use fully to its potential. I don't know if it has its full potential though. We've tried before, just not as good as what you would hope for. So what we've decided is to go with Google Calendars because it's very easy for somebody to convince somebody to download Google Calendars
Yeah.
is essentially why we chose it. So customer, installer, and ourselves can actually communicate with that. That's like a confirmation at that point. And yeah, that's really our process. It's nothing fancy. Honestly,
Okay.
it needs to be fixed, and that's where I wanted to see if there is anything out there that anybody knows of. I'd like to discover it, um, and just to talk about like what are the features that are necessary for that
Hmm.
solution. If there is a solution, what is it? And just kind of chat about it because it's got to be a problem with everybody.
Oh, I think managing one crew, especially if you're a member of that crew as an installer, that's super easy. Managing two crews, if you're still a member of one of the installation crews, isn't that hard, right? You build up a trustworthy person. They're the lead installer. Hey man, I'm going to job A, you go to job B, do the things we've always done, we're going to be successful. If there's a problem that arises, you can be on the phone, you can drive over, like you're going to find a way to make it work. Getting into three, four, five crews, you're probably removed now, and you don't have all day to drive around and visit, right? You've really got to start getting some systems in place. And I would assume as a retailer, you've got at least a couple projects going on every day, right? And so, but you've got to do sales, you've got to worry about the marketing, you've got to push the company forward. So I guess like where's the pain points for you, right? How many crews are you keeping busy daily? And then like what's the actual pain point you're suffering from right now?
Yeah, with the amount of crews, we'd say 5 to 10 crews are consistent throughout the year, just depending on how the season is.
Okay.
That's who we're keeping busy. That's beyond like a hardwood tile, lot of tile setters really is what is popular. And then we got
Okay.
hardwood, luxury vinyl plank, and laminate. We don't really focus on carpet. That's where I'm not a fan. Just straight up, I just don't love it.
I don't blame
It's
you. It's
it's
gross.
dirty. It just makes everything dirty in the back warehouse, and I have to make cuts, and it's just more work than it truly is worth. And there's a lot of flooring stores that are loving carpet lineup, so I'll let them do that thing. So yeah, we just keep like higher end crews busy.
Hmm.
Like I said, the end consumer cares about their flooring, so they're going to care about the end result, which gives us um, the better installers because the end consumer that is coming to us sees the value of that human at the other side. So when my installer comes to me and says this is worth this much, I'm comfortable with going to my end consumer and saying my tile setter will only do it for this much,
Hmm.
and that is a simple and plain fact. And if you'd like to work with us, I can give you the result that your expectations are looking for. I can promise you that, and you're going to have a fun ride. And if you go elsewhere, you go elsewhere. It is what it is.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, that's kind of what we've set up, and we take care of our installers that are good because they're good installers. They are good, and we go through good and bad installers just like any other thing that you're hiring in the business, whether it be a salesperson or anything else. Um, but again, we want the best of the best because we want the best clients
Hmm.
too. So we're just trying to match those two people together. That's what our purpose is in the middle. So
Okay. So what's the biggest thing you're struggling with right now in keeping everything scheduled and moving smoothly, right? Like what's the big hurdle to get over?
yeah, definitely communication between the installer and the customer. If there's schedule changes, if there's any surprises, um, just having some sort of line of communication
Hmm.
that is all three. I just find that a salesperson tends to be like the telephone person in the middle, and it's frustrating for the installer typically because the salesperson is not communicating directly enough typically because the salesperson's kind of a yes
Hmm.
man,
Hmm.
whereas this installers actually boots on the ground dealing with the problem head on. So they don't want to really sugarcoat it. They want it dealt with, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I find like that lack of communication could be fixed by an app. I think I just don't know if it's out there yet. That would have also a calendar system. That's what I'm thinking in my brain would be successful
Okay.
as solution to my problem. My problem is essentially communication and like clarity on the job site. Is everything on the job site? What's the job site look like? We got that through our Monday.com, but it's just not clean, you know? Like it's jumping app to app. I
Mm,
can't bring the installer into Monday.com to see all those things. I have to email it out. So that's another step. I just find there's a lot of steps. So it could
okay.
be improved.
So
Not
you
saying that there
need,
is an improvement out there,
yeah.
but I feel like there should.
So you need a CRM that your installers can be a part of, and then the client can be sending in feedback that the salesperson can see, and the installer can be sending in feedback that the salesperson can see, and they can solve it from there, as opposed to having to do phone calls and let me do this and then call this person and solve this. And you need a more centralized way of the communication to happen that it works more efficiently for you.
100%. And
Okay.
also easy enough to adopt. So something that hooks up to Google Calendar for the confirmation, but yet then something that somebody like all three attributes can go into the communication and have that talk.
Mm-hmm.
So it's clear. There's no telephone talk where somebody said something, but the next person doesn't communicate the same.
I mean, so I think one thing I've brought up before, and it's definitely something that I think more people need to work on, and myself included. Um, if you have a conversation and it's not digitally, then you have to follow up with a digital response
I
just to
agree.
recap it. And so if it's a he said she said thing, right? The salesperson is coming out and telling the client one thing, and then the installers come out and they say another, and it's now, well, they said this and they said that, and we can't do. Where does it say that the salesperson came out and they promised that X would be delivered, and then where does it say that, the installer came out and X can't be delivered, but we can accommodate you with process Y? Now, granted, that becomes a change order, da da da. Go talk with the salesperson. But I think just having, whether it's an email chain or you get the CRM and you're able to keep track of it in that, I think that's what you're ultimately looking for. It just has to get built out to where everyone becomes accountable of, if I have a verbal conversation, I have to follow up with a recap digitally so everyone can stay on the same page.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the CRM at this point. It's just clunky. That's all. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
complaining about technology that's not fully there yet, but in a way that I'm hoping that somebody hopefully sees this and goes like, I have a solution. I've had it the whole time. It's just no awareness of it. So, but
Well,
yeah,
I think it's out there. I think you just have to get into more industry specific stuff, right? Like you're using a very generic system at this time. And so there are specific, Cronus software was a sponsor for a while. They've got one. Broadloom's got an option with RLM. Um, there's Measure Square does measuring. There's another one. There's a couple that are very like Floors app. There's a bunch that are like flooring specific and are built to work within our industry. And then even within those, right, not all of them have the same options. So it may be best at this point, like, I think starting off with the generic solution of like, well, okay, you went with the big boy that like big companies use and said, okay, this isn't for us. It's too expensive. There's too many options. This is not what we need right now. You scaled it back and you found something that works, and now you're hitting the problem of scale and saying, okay, this works to a point, but we have to make it better. And so now we have to go find the next solution. And that may be where looking at the industry specific software and going and doing demos with 3, 4, 5 companies is going to fill the need of what you actually need so that you can
Yeah.
build the process out. It's just seeing what they have available to let
Yeah.
you build.
Definitely discover
It's got to
mode.
be built out to it. The problem is that the people build them because of how they operate. So you have to find the one that fits you the best. It's like putting on Cinderella's glass slipper.
It's so true. Everybody just wants it their own way. You know, like operations are like always their own way, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
it needs to be slightly customizable, but it's not. Or you have to find one that's built by somebody that runs a business like you do.
yeah, definitely.
Okay. Are there any other struggles on that front of like keeping things organized, or how to get the you know, how do I know how long to actually schedule something for? Like where what are some other pain points within that installation world?
Yeah, that installation world, I find like you need most likely a knowledgeable person in flooring to know those timelines. So if they don't have those timelines in check, you're going to be out of whack. I don't know if there is a technology that's going to like know all those things.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like a manual effort, but for us, we just have a knowledgeable person in flooring that knows the timelines, or at least asks for those timelines from the installers, and just gives correct timelines is what
Yeah.
we try to focus on. Is just giving that clarity, no matter if it's a good news or bad news, but just being on schedule when we are promised to be.
What's the I mean, if you're asking them, right, I don't think that's a problem, right? You ask the installer, hey, I got this project for you next. How long is it going to take you?
Yeah.
Do you build in any kind of leeway to it? Or if somebody runs long on a different project, like, are you swapping crews between things? Or are you just calling up that client and saying, hey, we got to start a day later? Like, how are you solving those issues?
Typically, we're just um, being clear with the client, saying that we're going to be a day late. I don't like swapping crews. In my experience, just having one crew on a single job is, or not one crew on a single job, but just having like in one build, I guess. If it was one condo, I want the same guy in the condo because it's just same work all throughout the
Mm-hmm.
entirety of it. So we don't tend to swap anything, but we definitely uh, change our plans a tad.
I
So
think
we
that's
keep,
more of what I mean by when I say swap, right? Like if you have
yeah,
crew A scheduled, but they're running over on a different project,
uh,
are you throwing crew B on it because they finished early, or are you calling and being like, well, it was a crew A job, so we just like you guys got to wait an extra day or two, and then we'll be out.
yeah, that's fair. Most times I would say we could do the swap, just depending on the job site, just depending on the expectations of the job.
Mm-hmm.
I would say there's different levels to this thing, and if it's a really high-end build, most likely we're going to be on time. I don't know if we've ever not been like on time for a very high-end build, but I don't know if I could do a swap per se with a different installer. I will almost always just tell the client, look, this if this was my home, I would want this person on it, and we are 3 days behind, and I will be 3 days behind. But if I were to do the option game, I would use this person and wait
Mm-hmm.
3 days. And they tend to go with my position on it. If you're just clear on those expectations,
Mm-hmm.
is what I try to do. So that would be our process.
Okay. I mean, it sounds you run it more like a. I mean, I haven't dealt with retail on that scale. But it sounds like a fair assessment of how I would do it, right? Like I want to be able to put the person that's going to do the best there. I don't necessarily want to send in the B or C team to take care of
Yeah,
what the A team should have been assigned to. And so
exactly.
I would rather push and have that conversation as opposed to compromise the potential quality and lasting reputation of the company by, well, they're running behind because they're doing a good job over here. Let me just get somebody in there to take care of this, and we'll see how it plays out. Now,
Yeah.
That being said, I would hope that everybody on my team is an A team, and I could flip flop them around. But I understand that's not realistic. We're dealing with people, and everybody has a different set of skills.
Yeah, exactly. I I think people are very comfortable with waiting an extra couple days for having the expectation fulfilled the way they want it. So
Mm-hmm.
if you can communicate that you're going to fulfill their expectations if they are okay with this change in their timeline. Um, and again, just reflecting that if this was my home, this is the decision I would make, and that's why you've chosen me as a person to make these decisions. I'm not going to make them for you, but I'm going to influence you to wait the 3 days for a player.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's just it works better that way, is what I found. When you start messing things around, honestly, just having that environment is very difficult to have people comfortable in that environment. If you have salespeople that are like, "What are you doing?" You're all over the map. People get really frustrated pretty fast. They want to know what's going on.
Yes. Oh, I think the communication is key. Like I want to over communicate,
Yeah,
and I like that approach of I'm just going to be honest and tell you what I'm thinking, why I'm thinking it. Let's have the conversation, and then you let them make the educated, decision, and you give them the info and let them pull the trigger on what they want to do. Right? You're there to guide them. You're not there to just facilitate that something gets done. And
yeah,
I guess that's why I like calling them clients, right? Like I can call them a customer all day long, but that's so transactional to me. And so by saying they're a client, then that means that you're taking somebody under your professional, like you're using your professionalism and your skills, and you guide them through an entire process. And
yeah.
that's really what we should be doing is we're taking them under our wing, protecting them from the big scary things that are out there. And
Exactly.
yeah, I like that.
We're just a bunch of like servers, honestly. Just think of yourself as a waiter. And if
There you go.
you have a client, you'll have some clients that'll be like, I'll have the steak. But if you are the waiter and you don't tell them about the steak special of the steak and lobster, they're going to be pissed at you because they wanted that lobster for 15 bucks that was normally 30 and you didn't tell them about it. That's like not telling them about the stair noses that are color matched and put on metal stair nose instead. They're going to be pissed. They're gonna be like, you didn't tell me that option was available. Of course I
Mm-hmm.
would have chosen.
Yeah.
So like that's what we're there for. We're also the person to say, like to make them not look dumb. How do I pronounce this word? Right? Like in the menu. So like that's all we're there for. It's for them to feel comfortable in the process. It's a large purchase. It's as much as a vehicle. You got to really respect. Like it's a lot for somebody to upheave their life in a renovation or a home build. It's a lot of stress. And again, the cost is immense. It's amount of a vehicle. So the choices that they're making are very stressful. It may seem normal to you and it's like just a job that you're trying to close on, but in the perspective of the client, it matters a lot. So just focusing on the experience is the best way for them
Mm-hmm.
to enjoy your process. If they've
Yeah.
enjoyed themselves, they're going to tell their friends.
You had mentioned that one of there's can be errors in getting the correct materials ordered or to the project.
Yeah,
And so that's a struggle. So what's actually happening? Is it a sales side problem? Is it an installer error because they expect something when they don't need it? Like what's the actual what's actually happening there?
yeah, definitely a two-part system. So the sales team have to be educated on what the needs analysis is for the job site. So making sure that you actually have that salesperson and possibly yourself if you're going to be training them, right? To go there, measure, get those expectations, and start your system there. And it's as simple as writing down what you've done over and over and over. Because once you write it down, it's clear to the person that you're educating. So just creating a system there. on what that is, the rip out of the materials, the the little things like the doors, the baseboards, those conversations on site that you should be having with the client
Mm-hmm.
when you're on site doing that measure, so that they're not surprised with the new quote that of baseboards and stuff. Um, and then making sure that if they've got it all correct, if that salesperson has been trained properly or you've done that quote correctly, that approved quote from the client then gets ordered as it should, and if it shows up on site as it should. So that communication in the in between all has to go well, which I find uh, another big pain point, just as much as an install management system, is an order process or an order person. I'm not sure if that's like we really needed an order person. Like our
Okay.
orders needed to be sound and our installations needed to be sound. I find those are like the three big-headed beasts of the whole retail game. If you have your sales in check, you got your orders in check, and you got your installs in check, um, those people matter the most, is what I've found.
Okay. So
So
you have one person ordering now?
yeah, we have one person ordering all products, so that's like an everyday thing.
Okay.
Um, and there's other attributes to that. That's like paying people. Um, just money flow, I guess, is really what that person's doing, and orders.
Okay.
Um,
So, but okay. So the salespeople come up with the order and then they go and order it. So are they double checking the salesperson work? Like, are they looking over the project and saying, "Hey, there's no T molds on here. Like, what's going on?" and going back, or are they just entering the order and saying, "This is what it called for." It goes in the system, and when it arrives, I'll check off that everything's here.
so in my system, the order taker is not as experienced as I am. So I'm actually, that's why you need to remove yourself from the process. You just have to become the over person. So I check all those orders that the sales people have put together as a quote. We get that approved quote, which then, if it's approved quote, that means I've approved the quote to go out. Then the order is taken and put through that process. But what I'm finding is like you can't just put an order in. You have to track it and make sure it shows up on time, because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise you're relying on a bunch of businesses that you're buying from as a manufacturer to do your job, right? Like
Yeah.
your expectations are like you're going to do what you said you're going to. Most times they don't. Um, so being on top of that and making sure that things show up as per the install says so, because
Mm-hmm.
off the first expectation, the install was booked, right? So that's all of that has to work all overlapping, but I'm the site person, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
the runner of the business. So I'm running the business over top, but I don't do any of the sales process. I just teach the sales people how to do the process. So then that the quote is correct. I don't do the quote, but I check over the quote so that the quote goes into the order desk properly and we actually have all the things we need. The order
Okay.
desk is vital because I can't check that they've done the order properly. They just need to follow the steps. So that's why it's super vital. And then the install has to be timed properly from the order taker's
Mm-hmm.
timeline. So if there's a product that's not going to show up on time, I got to push back an install
Yeah.
or whatever. Just,
Okay.
but that's definitely the process where things get mumble jumbled if you're not always checking to see that things are on time, making those orders every day, and then staying on top of your installs and uh, installers to show up on time
Okay.
as well.
So is the CRM currently allowing you to track orders in it, or are you having to create like a separate system to, okay, hey, this came in, this is running late, this came in, or is it all like, is there a central location that you're able to keep track of it all?
With Monday.com, we have a lead and it has a drop down, and then that's where we put our orders. So it'll have a PO, the company that we're ordering from, and then a reference number
Mm-hmm.
with a tracking number, which then gives all the information for a salesperson. If they don't have that information yet, they can do that process themselves. It's wide open for them to get it.
Okay, but are you able to go like project by project and have 5 different vendors in there with 5 different PO? Okay, and then once everything's there, I'm assuming it's notifying you and saying like, "Hey, this is ready to go."
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's all, like that's the order person and the install manager working together to make sure that everything's showing up on time,
Hmm.
everybody's aware, and that everything's ready for us when we do have it all. And then also our warehouse person when you do have to deliver that product to site. So just having that communication all through the process of that is it can get really messy if you're not paying attention to it and have good people in those two
Hmm.
spots. So
Okay. So are you looking like how are you looking to improve that? Like what are you it's there's something in place, but what's wrong with it that you're not liking?
So again, lack of clarity is kind of one thing. Like Monday, we can't have the customer um, aware. There's no like a group chat of any sort. So I mean, again, we could do a Frankenstein with like a WhatsApp if they don't download a WhatsApp, or you can group chat as phone numbers. But a lot of people don't want to give out their phone numbers to everybody.
Well,
So
what do they need to know when their materials came in for? They only care about the install date.
yeah, typically it's honestly like that. It's nothing. That's not a huge issue. I wouldn't say like that's like everyday problem. It happens every once in a while, but it's um, more of like I would say more of like the installer was not clear on the morning of, and they show up an hour later than they expected, but the client's wondering where they are. So it's like that that little moment of time happens every once in a while,
Okay.
and it's just because there's like an hour and a half of unclarity.
Okay, so you need a better system for that. It's not necessarily managing the materials arriving and coming in. You need something that the installers are communicating better. Um,
Yeah, more of an accountability, to be honest, for the installer.
well, so what's the system like? Is it not? Is this a first day thing or is this like a middle of the project problem?
First
Because I
day, it's usually a first day thing.
okay, so why is it not? They I'm assuming they come to the shop and they pick up a work order, correct, and materials.
No, again, so we've streamlined that so things are faster. We deliver material and we deliver a work order via Google Gmail. So they should be receiving all the details of the job in photo form or video.
Okay.
They'll get a work order with all the details on it and with an address and Google Maps even for them to drop a pin
Okay.
to know where they're going. So really, the only thing I feel like we're missing is like say Uber for the installer. Like, why aren't you here yet?
Mm,
The lack of clarity, somebody sitting in their house waiting for you to come
yeah.
by, possibly. It's just that little bit. And I'm not saying like that's the worst thing in the world, but that's kind of what disturbed the cab companies with Uber is the clarity that you were going to have a cab in 2 minutes. I didn't have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
wonder
Yeah.
if it was going to turn around the
Okay.
corner and show up.
I mean, if they're not doing it now, like why isn't it required that the minute they get in their truck, they send an ETA, right? And that's
Yeah,
like,
I totally agree. I see your perspective, but the end consumer is like always sitting there wondering, where are you?
but
Like
that's
we
what I'm
said,
saying. So that's like, but if you tell, look, man, it's annoying when the cable company gives you a 4 hour window. Like
yeah,
putting my life on hold for 4 hours is ridiculous. So if you could give me a 15 to 30 minute window, like I'm much more receptive to that. And so I think as long as your installers know that like the minute they hop in the van, they need to send the text to the client saying, "Hey, we expect to be there between 8:15 and 8:30."
right.
And that I think for now until you find the solution of it's more automated based on GPS, that would work. My concern would be since you have subcontractors, I don't know that you could force them to have
No,
software that allows you to track them and
no, definitely
implements it
not.
into the system. So you could request it, but if somebody turned you down, I think they would have a valid reason to do so, and then that person
Yeah, I
doesn't
totally
become
agree.
part of the system, which means they don't have to necessarily be employed by you. But look, there's a whole other mess. This is why I'm like super pro. Let's hire employees instead of subcontractors, but that's a whole
Yeah, it's
different
true, man.
conversation. So
True. Yeah,
Um,
honestly, that is the disposition. If but I like that would be helpful to have like where the installer doesn't have to remember to send a text. It's just like when you hop in your vehicle, it's like auto text, hey, I'm on
mhm.
my way, or something like that. And it's not for me to track you, it's for the literal convenience and the lack of
Yeah.
forgetting. Um, but again, people have to adopt stuff and trust it. So that probably is a little bit of ways because installers, again, subcontractors, and also why are you tracking me? I don't need you tracking. So.
Yeah. Yeah. People get weird about it. I know, and I don't blame them. You do you. I don't know. I mean, I think as of now, like you kind of have to just lean on the installation crews to step it up and really do what they're supposed to be doing and communicating and helping you keep your brand up to snuff.
Yeah,
There may be a solution out there. I mean, I know there's plenty of tracking apps and there's time apps that have the tracking built in, but I don't know if there's anything that'll say like when this person starts heading for this location, notify this person of their ETA. I don't know if there's any. I haven't heard of anything like that, other than you can do. Well, you know what? Google Maps will do it. You can share your drive on Google Maps. I just don't know how to automate it, and I don't know if it's possible to automate. But that might be something that you could ask your installers to do. Is when they hop in the van, they pop in the client's address, and then they text them the Google Map link, and they can check it, and it'll tell them the ETA and let them see the progress of the drive of like where they're at.
that's not a bad idea. I'm gonna test that out. That was worth the conversation now, buddy.
Well, good, thank you. Because I was doing it when I drove to Denver recently, and I didn't want to like worry my wife, and I was like, here's the link. Like you can track my drive, and if you see that I end up
Gotcha.
stuck somewhere randomly for like 2 hours, you probably should worry and like tell somebody, hey,
Yeah,
he's at these like coordinates. Go find him.
exactly.
So technology is like pretty amazing what you can do these days. But I think that's the simplest free solution that I can come up with is the technology is there. I just don't know that anyone's put it together yet. If anyone knows, like reach out to us in Floor Academy, tag myself and Marcos. I'd love to know if there's an actual solution that's been built for this because it is pretty interesting. I know like the HVAC company I have will send something out and tell you to like their CRM automatically texts you and it's like, hey, the person's going to be here between here and here, and then if they have a problem, that the problem is that that person is like my installer was going to be late or my technician, and he had to call the home office, tell them he was running behind because of traffic, and then somebody had to go into the CRM and tell it to update and send me a text that, hey,
Wow,
there's
too many steps.
traffic, expect them 30 minutes later. There's no automated thing behind it, so there's still people involved. And I think that's, you're looking like, how do we cut all the middle nonsense out and streamline this to make it as quick as possible and as formative as possible.
Yeah, not to be like a complainer, but I mean, it could be better. It's just a little
Mm-hmm.
clunky, and I mean, every solution fits attributes, but not every solution fits all of them. So it's like, I don't know. I'm kind of just in discover mode. Do we need new tech, or is it just non-existent and we just kind of shift our process? Or I don't know. Solving it, I think, is everybody's like, isn't everybody in this flooring game to solve the little things? Like that's all we're here for. So
Uh, I think some of us are here for that. I think others are, we're happy doing it the way it's always been done, and that's a huge problem.
yeah,
So
that's right.
I definitely, I mean, I'm here. We've talked. You're here because of it. Like we have to do it differently. There's a better
It's
way. Like
yeah,
let's stop banging our head against the wall and expecting a different result than it hurts.
yeah.
It's just
Honestly,
asinine. So awesome, Marcos. Always a pleasure. Is there anything that you want to try and hit on like real quick that we didn't talk about?
Um, I would highly suggest that people get their social media right. Again, I brought myself self success with like focusing on social media. It's the easiest and cheapest way to create yourself a brand.
Hmm.
And it's just putting yourself out there. It's just literally your resume. So if you are comfortable with putting yourself out there and letting people know who you are so that they want you in their home, that's what social media is. So use it and use it to your advantage. Figure out how to use it, and you will do way better. It's hard to get attention, so you need to adopt where people are paying attention so that
Hmm.
you can thrive, not just slowly die.
Love it. I think it's great advice. Find a way to reach people where they're at and where they're going, not where they've been. That's just not going to
Yeah,
work. So great
yeah.
advice. I think that's going to do it for us this week, folks. You can always tune in next week where we'll be having another conversation to help you go from owning a hobby to owning an asset and building a brand that works for you instead of you working in it. Uh, you can check out flooracademypod.com, check out the shop over there, pick up a shirt, get some swag, rep the brand everywhere else. We always have our always a favorite of profit is not a dirty word shirts and hoodies. Do I got anything else I want to plug? Not really. So we got a quick word here from Tice. Listeners, it's nearing that time of year again. Time to remind you that the International Surface event is returning to Las Vegas January 28th through the 30th of 2025. Mark your calendars now, whether you're an installer, retailer, distributor, or server industry within another capacity. Attending TICE is a solid resource to expand your knowledge and networking base. You can also learn about the newest and industry leading products coming to market. Stay up to date with the International Surface Event page on Facebook or visit intlsurfaceevent.com. Again, Marcos, thank you again for coming back on the show, having the conversation, spitballing ideas for people to look into, sharing wisdom from your struggles and growth as a business owner. And folks, we got that Floor Academy group on Facebook. Come on in, ask questions. Let's help each other. Iron sharpens iron, and you keeping that stuff internalized is not going to do you any favors. Let's get it externalized, and not only will you process it differently, but you'll have a team of people working on it with you, which is way better. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us.